The moment you open your mouth to explain yourself, you have already lost. You were taught that apologizing is strength, that taking responsibility is noble, that the man who says, "I'm sorry," first is the bigger man. They told you this in classrooms, in churches, at dinner tables. They repeated it until it felt like oxygen. That is the lie they fed you. Every time you have bent your knee, every time you have softened your voice, lowered your eyes, and offered your throat to someone who barely deserved your silence, you did not become the bigger man. You became smaller. You became easier to break. You trained them to expect it. You handed them the blade and asked them to be careful with it. Niccolo Machiavelli understood something that your teachers, your parents, your priests, and your therapists spent decades trying to destroy in you. The world does not reward the apologetic. It consumes them. There are 3 specific types of people to whom your apology is not a gesture of peace. It is a transfer of power. And the third type, the third one, is the one most of you are living with right now. If you are not ready for this, close the video, go back to the crowd. But if you want to know the truth about why your apologies have made you weaker, not stronger, stay. You were brainwashed to believe that the apology is a form of emotional intelligence, that saying, "I was wrong," levels the field, that vulnerability is the highest form of strength. Every self-help book, every wellness influencer, every licensed counselor with a poster of a sunrise on their office wall told you, own your mistakes, be accountable, apologize freely. What they never told you, what they could not tell you without dismantling the social architecture they depend on, is that the apology, in the wrong context, to the wrong person, is not repair. It is submission. It is a white flag dressed in the language of maturity. The apology is a signal, and in the animal kingdom of human power dynamics, it signals one thing: I am beneath you. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." He was not advocating cruelty. He was diagnosing perception. The man who is respected is not the man perpetually apologizing for his existence. He is the man who acts with such clarity of purpose that the question of apology rarely arises, and when it does, he controls the terms. Robert Greene understood this too. Law 9 of the 48 Laws of Power: win through your actions, never through argument. The apology is an argument. You are arguing for your own worthiness. You are asking permission to be treated as an equal. That is not strength. That is a performance of weakness dressed as accountability. What this video will show you are the 3 specific profiles, the 3 types of people for whom your apology does not restore peace. It fuels their power over you. Be warned. What follows is not comfortable. It is surgical. The first revelation: the opportunist. Never apologize to the person who was waiting for it. Most people believe that when they have caused friction, the other party deserves an acknowledgement. This is true in a world populated by adults operating in good faith. But the average man cannot distinguish between someone who was genuinely hurt and someone who simply positioned themselves to collect. The opportunist is not wounded. They are waiting. They filed your apology in advance. They planned what to do with it. Psychologists call this the Darvo response, a pattern documented by Dr. Jennifer Freyd at the University of Oregon. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. The moment you apologize to the opportunist, they reverse the dynamic. Your apology becomes the confession. The confession becomes the weapon. The weapon gets used long after you thought the conversation was over, in the next argument, the next dispute, the next gathering where they need leverage. Look at the historical case of Galileo Galilei. In 1633, the Roman Inquisition demanded that he recant his scientific work. He apologized, formally, publicly, on his knees. He said every word they required. And what did the apology purchase him? House arrest for the remainder of his life. His books remained banned. His reputation was stamped with the mark of heresy. The apology did not restore him. It documented his submission for the permanent historical record, proof of their authority over his mind. The opportunist does not want resolution. They want proof. Proof that you are beneath them. Proof they can produce on demand. Here is your instruction. When you recognize that the demand for an apology is not an expression of genuine pain, but a request for power, hold your position. Look at them directly. Do not explain. Do not justify. Do not fill the silence with anything. Let the silence be your entire answer. Because if the opportunist is dangerous, the next type is predatory. The second revelation, the architect of guilt. Never apologize to the person who manufactures the wound. The average man has spent his entire life apologizing to someone who was never actually hurt. Someone who learned, early, perhaps in childhood, perhaps through years of careful practice, that the performance of hurt generates compliance. Your discomfort at their discomfort is their currency. Your guilt is the leash. This is what psychologists call coercive control, a framework documented extensively by Dr. Evan Stark in his research on intimate power dynamics. The coercive controller does not need your cruelty to operate. They need your guilt. Your guilt makes you manageable. Your apology is the lease agreement on your own mental real estate. You were brainwashed to believe that every expression of hurt is evidence of harm caused. It is not. Pain can be manufactured. Wounds can be performed. And the person who has learned that your apology is currency will spend every moment creating new conditions under which you owe them one. Consider Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who redrew the map of Europe. At the height of his power, no general, no coalition, no political adversary could position him into emotional submission. But toward the end, isolated, desperate for legitimacy, second-guessing alliances, he began to negotiate emotionally. He made concessions. He softened. He apologized through action and through word. And they did not love him more for it. They destroyed him, not primarily on the battlefield of Waterloo, but through the slow erosion of his clarity, through the steady management of his guilt, through the exploitation of his need to be accepted by courts that had already decided against him. The man who apologizes to those who manufacture the wound does not become more loved. He becomes easier to wound again. Your instruction: when you feel the pull to apologize, and you cannot identify a specific, concrete, real harm that you caused, stop. The guilt is not evidence of a crime. It is a conditioned response. Feel it, observe it, and do not act on it. Do not give it the weight of fact. You are still here. Good. The fragile ones already left. Comment below: I do not negotiate my own submission. The third revelation: the permanent enemy. Never apologize to the person who has already decided you are the enemy. This is the one most of you are living with right now. A family member, a former partner, a colleague who has rendered a verdict about you. A verdict that predates any specific crime you can name. A verdict that was formed before you entered the room. And a verdict that no apology will overturn, because the apology was never the mechanism they were waiting for. The average man believes that if he can find the right words, the right tone, the right moment, the verdict will be reversed. He spends months, sometimes years, crafting the perfect apology, rehearsing it, delivering it, watching it be received, and then watching it reappear as evidence at the next trial, because every apology he has offered has simply become another entry in the case they are building against him. Robert Greene describes this in The 33 Strategies of War as the controlled anger dynamic. The opponent who maintains conflict not out of genuine grievance, but because the conflict itself is the source of their power over you. The war benefits them. Your apology does not end it. It funds the next campaign. Look at Cosimo de' Medici. When the Albizzi family conspired to exile him from Florence in 1433, Cosimo did not petition. He did not appeal to old alliances. He did not send letters through intermediaries explaining himself or apologizing for the power he had accumulated. He accepted the exile. He went quietly. He worked his networks in silence, across northern Italy, across Europe, and he returned the following year to lead Florence for the next 3 decades. The Albizzi family was eventually expelled from the city they thought they owned, not through vengeance, through patience, through Cosimo's absolute refusal to legitimize their hostility by responding to it on their terms. Your apology to a permanent enemy is not a peace offering. It is a map of your vulnerabilities. Every word you offer reveals exactly where you can still be hurt. Every justification tells them which accusations landed. Your instruction: identify the person in your life whose verdict about you exists independent of your behavior. Stop performing for that verdict. Every unit of energy you spend crafting the perfect apology to someone who has already decided, redirect it. Build something they cannot confiscate. Position yourself where their opinion becomes irrelevant. Do not explain yourself to your enemies. Outlast them. Is the full weight of this settling in? Good. Because what this path costs you, no one warned you about it. There is no comfortable version of what this creates. The path of refusing to apologize to those who weaponize the apology. It does not make you popular. It does not make you loved. It does not warm the rooms you walk into. It makes you a ghost to some, a threat to others. There is a particular loneliness to it, a silence that no crowd ever resolves, a cold that no validation ever fully reaches. You become the wolf, and the wolf does not run with the flock. Not because the wolf is cruel, because the nature of the wolf and the nature of the flock are structurally incompatible. The flock requires that everyone kneel. The wolf cannot kneel without ceasing to be the wolf. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote The Prince not from a position of power. He wrote it stripped of his office, tortured in the Palazzo del Bargello, exiled from the city of Florence he had served for 14 years. They broke his body. They tried to dismantle his mind. He had been a diplomat, a statesman, a man of significant influence, and in a single season, they took all of it. He did not write letters of apology to the Medici who had him tortured. He wrote a manual of power so precise that it is still studied and feared 500 years after his death. Because a man who knows himself, who knows where the line is, who has identified what he will not surrender, cannot be fully destroyed. They can exile the man. They cannot exile the clarity. This freedom is cold. The freedom of a man who no longer answers to courts that hold no legitimate jurisdiction over his life. But it is the only freedom that is truly yours. Every other freedom, the warmth of approval, the comfort of being liked, the relief of being forgiven by someone who had no right to hold the charge, those freedoms are borrowed. They can be recalled at any moment. This one cannot. You made it to the end of this. Most did not. Most closed the window in the first 60 seconds because something in the hook reminded them of a conversation they are not yet ready to have with themselves. They went back to the crowd. They will continue apologizing their way into smaller and smaller versions of who they once had the potential to become. You are not them. The fact that you are still here means something in you already knew. Already knew that the apology you gave last year did not restore the relationship. It made the next demand louder. Already knew that the guilt you have been carrying was placed there, not earned. Already knew that you have been performing for an audience that was never going to applaud. Subscribe, not because I asked you to. Subscribe because you are done being managed. And if you want to go deeper, there is content I cannot put into a public feed. Frameworks that the algorithm does not reward. Strategies for adversarial environments that do not survive in the attention economy. The architecture of long-game thinking, how to position, how to wait, how to move when the moment arrives. The members who already access it understand exactly what I mean. The question is not whether the path I have described is real. You already know it is. The question is whether you are ready to stop being prey.